Welcome back to week 2 of our picture book planning class. I hope you did your homework from last week, and if you did, you should have your goals set for this class so you know what kind of book you're hoping to make. You should have chosen your manuscript. So if you're playing along with me, we are using the Frog Prince. Here it is. And maybe you looked at a couple picture books to get some ideas kind of where you're going to go with your project. Now, once you have your manuscript, you get to do my favorite part of the entire bookmaking process, which is read the manuscript and come up with ideas. This is the part of the process where you let your mind run wild. Don't worry about anything but coming up with good ideas to go with this text. And as you can see, I make some little marks. I doodle on there some important places. I'm not making big decisions yet about laying out my book, but I'm starting to get my ideas flowing, to find the interesting things that I want to draw and create, and to really start to think about my characters. And characters are our topic this week. And I love characters. You can't have a good picture book without a good character. So what I'm actually going to do is switch to my overhead view and show you my process of creating characters. And I'm going to go through some important things to keep in mind as you create your own characters. So let me get out my sketchbook and here we go. Okay, welcome to my somewhat messy desk here. This is my workspace. Here's my sketchbook. And I just want to start with some character design stuff. All you need is a pencil and a sharpener, maybe an eraser. And so when I start character design, what I do is I read through the text and I start to get an idea of what I want to create. Who is this story about? What do they look like? How am I going to create something that's memorable and that I can draw over and over again? So with the Frog Prince, the main character, as I read through this, needs to be a little bit on the older side if we go with this traditional story, because she gets married at the end. So she, in my brain, needs to be at least, we're going to say 18 years old. So I'm dealing with a teenager type along the lines of something like a Disney princess. I'm not dealing with a small child. So I keep that in mind right from the start. Number 2, what other characters do I have in this story? So we have a princess, we have a frog, we have a king, and we have a prince. So really 4 characters that we need to figure out how we're going to design. I'm going to start with the main character, the princess, because she's going to take the most work to develop. And she's also the character that I'm going to be drawing the most over and over again. I want to make sure the character is something I can consistently draw. And that's so important, because if you draw something super complex to start with, you're really going to struggle to draw that character over and over again. So my first advice, keep it simple. Start with the design and simplify it and simplify it. Now let me show you an example of this for this story. So I set out to design the princess. Okay, so this is the first sketch that I did. I had an idea of the colors that I wanted. I wanted these reds and yellows, and I wanted the clogs, because the clogs are mentioned in the story. So I started to sketch out some characters, but as I was working, I realized I'd gotten way too complicated on the hair. This is too much going on. So I kept sketching. See, I just worked a couple different hairstyles. I wasn't really sold on any of them. When I'm in this early process of creating characters, I also might look for some reference. So if I know there's a style of dress I want, I might look at dresses, I might look at historical paintings, I might look at other characters, anything that gets me in the right headspace to create this character. So if you knew that your Frog Prince was taking place on an island, your character design would be very different. You might have different fabrics, different colors, different patterns. You want to be bringing that all together as you begin to design your characters. So I worked to simplify the character. I'll show you the next one. And as I was working with a simpler hairstyle, I kind of came into this character. And again, I kept it very simple with her colors and simplified her dress and her design. I wanted some patterning in the fabric, but I wanted to keep it really simple. You can also see on here, I think, you can see this. I started a design for the frog. When you are designing animal characters, you have to decide, are they actually like animals or are they human animals? Now for this story, the frog is really a frog. He's not like a frog human, so until he turns into a human. So I wanted to keep the frog looking pretty naturalistic, except I simplified his eyes a little bit. And this is just my first sketch. He might get changed as I continue. Back to this, you see my sketch here for our princess. And I've done a little scale here, giving me an idea of her proportions. How many heads tall is she? She's like 6.5. And that's gonna help me when I have to draw her consistently over and over again to make sure she's in the correct proportion. This becomes extremely important when you deal with drawing children. So let me show you a character design for a different story. I was working on a story that has a boy, and this was my original sketch for him, and you can see he's about 4 2/3 of a head tall. And as I was working on it, I just realized he looked too old. So I went back to the drawing board and I redrew him. This time he's 1, 2, 3.5 heads tall. And you can see it's the same character, but he looks really, really different, like he grew up, because children have larger heads, they have rounder bodies, so really rounded. All the shapes, everything about this character's shaped are round and curvy, as opposed to in this sketch where you can see some of the straight lines because he's grown up a little bit. So keep that in mind. Does your character have round lines? Are they soft? Or do they have sharp, pointy lines, sharp cheekbones and things like that? A really great thing to do is to look at cartoons, look at Disney, because they were masters of this. You will find your princesses are all curvy, soft lines, and your evil characters are pointy. These fall into certain archetypes, and I did want to touch on that briefly. There are certain things, certain characters, the way you draw them, they're going to be perceived as evil, or they're going to be perceived as good. And you have to decide if you want to play into that or if you want to go against that. So again, I really recommend taking some time, look at your inspirations, look at movies, look at cartoons, look at other characters and how they're drawn. See how many heads tall they are. All these things will help you as you design your characters. And I want to show you real quickly an example of a character where I used round forms, and that's the king. So I decided I really wanted to lean into the round forms. So when I draw that king, his middle section is round. His sleeves are round. His legs are round. I'm working with all these nice round shapes. Even his fur collar is round. When I go to draw his nose, very round. So if you simplify your shapes as you start, your characters are going to be easier to draw. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about your character designs. I mentioned looking at some movies and books for inspiration. Inside Out is a great movie to look at for character design, because in that movie there are the emotions, and each one of them is so well designed, and everything about them matches their emotion, including their color, their shape, all these things. So if you are struggling to design your character, I always say start with a shape. Is your character ovals? Does your character have an oval face? Does your character have a round face? Does your character have a square face? Yes, that's a thing. Or maybe an inverted triangle. These are all really simple, but you can use them to create different characters. So when I draw faces, a lot of times I will draw that cross line that we all do, a lot of artists do. Okay, so in my oval character, I'm gonna keep everything soft, round, oval. You can draw eyes however you like. I like these kind of semi-dot eyes because they're easy to draw and I can put expression in them easily. But the style of how you draw your eyes is really up to you. So let's keep with this oval theme, and I'm going to do a nice soft ovally mouth, soft eyebrows. Now let's compare that oval to if I do a character with a triangle face. Now obviously this is a little extreme, I'm hoping you can see that, but if I start with something that's very triangular, I can always work it into more natural proportions. You can tell already that this has a really different feel than this character. And I could keep drawing those triangles as I sketch out the rest of the character, infusing them into different parts of the character design. Whereas my oval character here, I might keep everything softer, everything more oval, sloped shoulders. Now if you're trying to draw someone youthful, or you're trying to draw a soft character, keep your form soft. This guy needs a little more hit. These are just quick sketches, but you see kind of where this is going. The round character, keep the nose round, keep the face round. I like to have the shape of the head and then lay the hair on top of that. And these are just my kind of first playing around sketches. I recommend playing around a lot. I recommend trying different things out. Don't go with the first character you draw. Sketch out a whole bunch of them. Try different hairstyles. Try different skin tones. That's really important. When you're writing a story, you don't have to make the character look like how every other frog princess has looked. This is your story. If you want your character to look a certain way and you can make it work with the story, do it. There are no rules that say it has to look the way that Disney did it or it has to look the way that Grimm's fairy tales did it. This is your story. Do it the way you want. So, I hope that this has helped you with character design. I would love to see what you design. If you struggle with drawing, you can use a reference. Maybe it helps you to look at someone who actually looks like the character, if that's a person in real life or an actor, whichever. Take some pictures or use some online resources to give you something to draw from, and just keep practicing. I draw characters every single day, and I definitely have moments when I draw one I don't like. It happens all the time. And then I just stop drawing and I draw it again. So don't be afraid to try, don't be afraid to fail. Keep working and develop some really great characters. I can't wait to see what you design, and I'm very excited about what we're going to learn next week. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.